So thank you, Deepika. Thank you, Indus University, Jai Ma Bharti, for giving me this. I appreciate that you have given me this opportunity to speak on this very important subject. So, I'll speak as I always speak, kind of extemporary. I do have like a couple of points that I've noted that I must speak. Uh, so the thing is, a lot of what I would say would, like blow your mind. So my handle is Puneet underscore Sahani, my first name underscore my last name. And from there you can also get the handle of our Seva account. So because they've made a lot of fake accounts, so whatever we say, if you ask and say, we'll actually give you evidence for what I'm saying. A lot of things would really be unbelievable for you to hear. And thank you a lot to like stupendous response. So I've heard like this is one of the most what do you say enthusiastic participation in a talk. So I really appreciate the others who have joined in to listen as well. So, let's start. So we are going to talk about history and, Sikh history, right? So why should we study history in the first place? So this is what I'm going to try to do. It's not just like, some facts that you mug up and, repeat in like an exam, but it's like everything would be from first principles where you engage with the world, right? So I think, is history like an ideology, like people use what they have done, like the Marxists have done? Or is it a science? So what is the difference between an ideology and a science for the first place, right? So we as a human beings, we are living a world and we are trying to make sense of it. Why has happened? So ideology is something that offers an explanation why this is happening. So Marxism is an ideology, but it is not a science because it is not able to predict. Actually, wherever Marxism has gone, it has basically destroyed the society. So the utopia never came. That's why we'll put it in the category of an ideology, not a science. But what is science is it just doesn't explain. It is also able to predict. That's why physics is a science. I would say history is also a science. If you study it from the perspective of, like what types of constraints and what types of incentives you put in a system and what kind of outcomes you'll get. So my case would be like we're studying history and we'll study history from a scientific perspective, right? Now, the second question is, okay, history is so vast, like Europe is actually really fascinating. India itself is so huge, why Sikh history? And why this should interest to people who are like not Punjabis or not Sikhs, for example. I would say, Sikh interest, history, like in our understanding of our freedom movement, of who we are as Indians, is this Sikh communal politics that comes in like 1920s. And it comes when Muslim League politics come, right? And this Akali Dal, like their earlier version was also called Sikh League. So Sikh League became like these different parties anyways. I think this is the most overlooked aspect of our historiography. So we don't understand. And to study this, we will understand what is happening. So, like, for example, what was the Muslim League demand? They say, we are a separate nation and we are an equal nation. So what does it mean? Like they were 25%. So they were like, like we can't be one nation, like Juda Gano Komiyat. So we cannot be like one nation together. Like we can't be all Americans. We can't all be British. We are irreconcilable. And Barabar means like, equal nation means, okay, we are 25, maybe like we want share of 50%, right? And these Indian leaders were also trying to placate Jinnah, okay, like, you become the prime minister or whatever. So if you look at like the Sikh demand, like nobody knows, it's like they also start using the word Qom in the 1920s. Now, this is actually really fascinating because, like the Guru Gobind Singh, who basically makes a military order. And, he's a master of languages from Braj to Sanskrit to Persian. And when he talks about Persian, he just doesn't know like the philology. He talks about their deep mythology. For example, his celebrated letter to Aurangzeb. So if you read, he never uses the word Qom. He uses like, okay, sometimes he says, for Hindu, he uses dharma, but for Khalsa, for example, he always uses the word Panth. Now, Panth is, everybody understands in India. He doesn't use the word Qom, but when the Muslim League start using the word Qom, these Sikh League also starts using the word Qom. Now, what they do is like those Muslim Leagues were 25%, Muslim League was making 50% share. Now, if you look at Sikhs were 15% in Punjab, less than 15% approximately. If you look at what was Master Tara Singh's demand or this Akali parties, it was the same. They were saying 30% share. Whatever is our population, because of our historic importance or whatever, give us double the share. No, like the Muslim League, their problem was, they said, Muslims are voting for Congress. They were like, we want, the Muslim League always demanded, the Muslim League is the sole representative. Now, this Anandpur Sahib resolution, which led to a lot of chaos in 80s, nobody has read it. It's utter nonsense. But one of the demands is also like this: is the Akali Dal should be the sole representative of the Sikhs. Why should that be the case? We are individuals. We have an individual conscience. We should decide who will represent us. How can this is again a Muslim League demand? And it's such a foolish demand, because if you look at Punjab history, that's why they played this game of communalism to polarize society. Because Congress at one time had more Sikh MLAs than Akali Dal. So how can they make such a stupid claim? And again, what was Muslim League thing? They would not get, they would make direct action. And they make Khilafat movement, and Gandhiji would placate them. Okay, you see, same to same. I respect all the scholars who have written, but nobody has actually seen Indian history from this perspective. So, for example, these Akalis were actually one of the first ones to lead direct action. And they were also like direct action all about religious things, like we would capture Gurdwaras and something. And once they would succeed, like the British government will work, they would get 10,000 people, and, people would die and they capture. Mahatma Gandhi said, you have put British on the back foot. You have won the first war of independence or something to that, I'm saying. So this is, kind of nonsense. So again, what Mahatma Gandhi was saying to Khilafat Andolan, he was doing the same with the Akalis. And just like Muslim League, sometimes they would come together, sometimes they would go out. If you look at Akali politics, it's the same. When they have to form the government with in Punjab, with this Unionist Party or Muslim League, they will go and tell like the Muslims, we are people like you, we are farmers with you. When they want a favor from the Congress, they go to the Congress and they say, Hindus and Sikhs have roti beti ka rishta, which is true. We share our daughters, like we intermarry our daughters to each other. Like, we give the hand of a daughter to the other family, and we also share food. Like, no, if you marry daughters into each other, then there can be no, so there is two. So, they would just like what Jinnah would say, like, something to somebody, to Muslimly, to what this mullahs, he would say something else. In like to the British, he would say something else. The exact same thing this, the Sikh communal politics was doing. And, again, like, it's not just like this trivia. It can also, make you understand. So, for example, when Pakistan happens in 1946, 90% of Muslims, they vote for Pakistan, right? And this is again like a very painful chapter of our history. Now, there are some who try to hide it. This is what our history has done. Now, there are modern ones, because some have pointed it out. They try to whitewash it. They say only not 100% people are voting. Of course, what kind of idiotic logic is it? Of course, there are only people of a certain age who can vote. And they're saying only people who had certain land who could vote. But again, this is a foolish logic. Because if you look at this, yes, the mullahs had unleashed a movement. They were saying, like, if you don't vote for Pakistan or this Muslim League, you're not going to be Muslims. We are going to dissolve your marriages. So this was going to affect people who didn't have land or who were poor. Not these people, it was going to affect less people who had land and, who had like their own property and who were well off. So if anything, if you would have included people who didn't have land and couldn't vote, then they would have voted probably even more. So, they try to hide it and other, but I would say, look at it in another perspective. This was just one election. In 1937, Muslims had not voted like this for Muslim League. They had voted for Congress. If you also see, when you unleash these genie, so for example, when they unleashed this in 80s, this terror in Punjab. Now, in 1989, if you look at the election, Punjab has, 13 Lok Sabha seats. So 10 were won by Khalistanis. Again, 90%. So the Sikhs, if you put this communal charge, if you set the same incentive and constraint and create the environment, even the Sikhs can turn as communal as Muslims. So 90% voted. So 10 out of 13 is 90%. And in the 10, 2 people who had won the election for Lok Sabha, their qualification were, they were the wife and the father of the killer of Mrs. Gandhi. This was this. And they were not one, I think, from Bhatinda and Ropar. The Behan Singh's widow and father had won. So this was the thing. So that's why I think it's very interesting. Um, so let's go to our three topics. Let's see how much time we have. So first is like Abrahamization, right? So for example, what is wrong in Abrahamization? Right? Like again, it's not just like we are there something wrong. It's actually like Abrahamic countries, like who are built on what do you say, Judeo-Christian values. Like for example, the Western Europe or America. I'm in America. We want to live there. So cultures don't live in a vacuum. They evolve with time. What I mean with Abrahamization is basically this idea of a single truth and this purging of diversity. No, this is actually a very painful thing. This is wrong. And if you look at Christianity, that's basically, it has gone through very painful stages. And I recommend this great book by Dr. Makallo, Christianity of the Last 3,000 Years. So he goes, before Jesus Christ, what was the ground reality for the 1,000 years, why Christianity came and how it evolved? It's a great book. Anyways, so Christianity has gone through a very painful stages where it is basically reformed. And now you can basically have the space for dissent. Now you have space for diversity. So I'm in a Christian country, like, I can criticize the church. I have the freedom to speak. So what this Abrahamization, I mean, is not, like to throw muck on Christian people by any stretch. But this idea that this, Baptist or evangelical idea that was brought in it. So, they purge all diversity from the faith. No, so you see, like if you do the British census, there are so many sects within Sikhism, Abrahamized, and some of these has basically, who had also like, how do you say, not defeated, but, like started their rival challenges the authority of the gurus. But they were accepted as Sikhs. For example, Abrahamized, right? So the Sikhism had so much diversity. And that had basically like, creating so many books were being written. It was an intellectually very stimulating time. And what's fascinating is, they ask, so this question is being asked by people, are you Hindu or Sikh? And they don't know what that means. So if you see, so in 91 census, in the next census from 81, 40% people who had marked themselves as Hindu marked themselves as Sikhs. 40% of Sikhs in 91 census, they had marked themselves as Hindus. So what does that mean? Like there was always a 50-50 chance, like, okay, whether I write myself a Hindu or whether I write myself a Sikh. So why the British wanted to do this? We will, go in the last chapter, how they colonized us and what was their incentives. So basically, they purged our diversity. And, this purging of diversity and this purging of dissent and creating this higher narrative, that is very, very, very high cost. To take two examples, and we take examples, like let's forget Sikhism. We take examples from the Muslim world, right? So if you look at the Muslim world, they talk about golden age and something like that. And it is true. There was a time where there was an Islamic golden age, right? But if you look at this Islamic golden age, that never happened in Hijaz or Makkah and Medina. This happened basically in Baghdad and, around these. And what happens in that time is very interesting, because you have to understand why some things get better. You have to focus what they get right. And what they get right is these two cultures are mixing, this Persian and the Arabic culture. So mixing of culture is good. That is again diversity. Then there is freedom to dissent. So if you look at, the greatest that they have produced is Avicenna. So if you look at what the king of that time is doing, he is saying, okay, bring me like a rabbi, and I want him to point out all the mistakes in Quran. And he says, bring me like a Maulvi, and I want him to point out all the mistakes in the Torah. So, there was freedom of conscience, freedom of speech, freedom to dissent. And that's why it came into being. Now, so, and now when you see, like, for example, when you set a narrative, which is basically like Pakistan. So now it's basically, they have set a country on two nationhood, and now nobody can question it. So wherever they excavate, they find their Hindu roots, their Buddhist roots. They can't do it because the narrative has to win. So they whitewash it. So, their language is Punjabi, everybody understands it. It has to be whitewashed. It reminds themselves of connection with like their larger Punjabi culture. put on Urdu because they think, Urdu actually means an army. So this was the language of the army. So what kind of people they have created is basically, people completely disconnected with their culture. People who have just like a higher narrative, but their culture and higher narrative are in complete contradiction with each other. And that is kind of what SGPC is doing in a way. And that's why, you have this mass conversions into Christianity and Khalistan, because, these people that they have converted SGPC, they're complete lunatics because they're not connected with their culture. And, they have just put theory in their mind. That theory is not connected to the ground. So, and, even, and when we talked about like the Muslim golden age. Now we move to the Sikh golden age, which is Maharaja Ranjit Singh's time. Now, if you look at Maharaja Ranjit Singh's time, you have religious freedom. Now, this heretical sects, that came out for, this Nirankaris. Bhindranwala, he was a monster, and, we have put his video where, he just says the most outrageous things. Like, for example, there is a statement, he says, if my bus is not released, I will chop 5,000 Hindus in like 1 hour. So this kind of person has been made by a saint by this. You can imagine what is their conscience and what is their intelligence. But anyways, he comes to the stage first time in 1978 with this Nirankaris conflict with this. What are Nirankaris is? They're a sect of Sikhism. And they come from Maharaja Ranjit Singh's time. So what does that mean? Or this Nandharis? That means there was religious freedom. You can start your own sect. Nobody has any problem with you. But, and what they say, like recently, I also said, he's one of my most inspirational figures, Guru Tegh Bahadur. But they say Guru Tegh Bahadur sacrificed his life for religious freedom. What kind of religious freedom are you offering in Punjab? So, SGPC issued a fatwa in 1978, and we have put it on the Seva handle, and we have also translated some line. You compare him to Aurangzeb, to what SGPC has done. I'm not saying Aurangzeb was like guiltless. He has sowed seeds that we are still suffering from. But compared to what this SGPC has done, Aurangzeb is a lamb. He reigned over this such a huge country. He could have done whatever. But, he would like basically take these people and he would say, okay, like convert to Islam or whatever. Otherwise, I'm going to like kill you and, like torture you, or I'm going to destroy your temple. This SGPC in 1978 issued a fatwa on this Nirankaris, who are 5% of the Punjab population, in complete genocidal terms. Anybody can read it. We have translated part of it. Anybody in Gurmukhi, you can do it. They call them scourge to humanity. All methods should be used to push them out. And what? So, they have done. So what power they had, SGPC? They have worked worse like Aurangzeb. And, this 5%, they hid like, what do you say? They became like Jews in a Nazi country. So they could practice overnight their religious, what do you say, congregation halls shut down. And even now somebody has told me, okay, some are sprouting up in Punjab. But if you say like you come to Delhi, you will see Nirankari Bhavan everywhere. You'll see Himachal. You'll see Nirankari Bhavan, Haryana. Actually, where SGPC rules, where they claim they rule in the name of the gurus, that's where we have the least religious freedom. They speak such kind of nonsense. And anyways, like, okay, like and it's just not diversity, like Maharaja Ranjit Singh's time. It is the apogee of Sikh power. So if you look at of that time, how he saw himself as, a Hindu or, like some cult, like evangelical cult. So, anything. So, for example, if you look at his mausoleum is what we call a samadhi, because thankfully it is in Pakistan. So this SGPC has not broken it. If you Google Ranjit Singh Samadhi Lahore, you find his samadhi has an idol of Ganesha front and center. If you enter his samadhi, there is sun god Surya Devta, because he says I'm from the lineage of what do you say from this what do you say Suryavanshi. So his coin. So you say, for example, his coin is usually say Akal Sahai Nanak Ji, Nanak Dev Ji, right? So he says like timeless, or like the God, blesses Guru Nanak. But if I forgot the year, I think, we have posted on our handle. You can go and check and look. So it is in the British Museum. In some places where, for example, he says Akal Devki Nandan Ji, Namdan in, a branch. So what means Devki Nandan is what? Krishna. Krishna is God himself. So these gurus, they were basically saints who were sent to, re-energize and, revival and teach bhakti and stand for dharma. They were not like prophets that they made out to be like Islamic prophets or something like that. God was Krishna. Guru Nanak was a great Sikh. Then if you look at his, battle flags of Maharaja Ranjit Singh's time, they have like, again, all their Hindu battle flags. So they have like Durga on top, they have Hanuman, they have Kartike. Then if you see where he is donating, so you say Golden Temple, and now Modi ji showed like in Kashi Vishwanath, he gave 1,000 kilos of gold. But again, he also, there is a third in Jwalaji. And Jwalaji is a very revered place because Guru Gobind Singh Ji also wrote about it. Maharaja Ranjit Singh actually married there by Vedic rites in Jwalaji. And, it's actually very dangerous. When he was in bad health, he sent his grandson, which was like, a very dangerous thing to do. Because, it was not democracy. Okay, this next person is going to be a ruler. People kill each other. So they had a chance. But that person left Lahore and went to Jwalaji to pray for Maharaja Ranjit Singh's life. If you look at, pilgrimages that he's doing, he's again, going to Jwalaji, where he is giving donations. He's giving donations to Dasis and Nirmalas mostly. They were like, again, a Sikh sect which have been removed from Sikhism by this, evangelical cult of SGPC. They were the scholars and they saw themselves strongly in the Hindu fold. All the scholars that came like big scholars, they were either Nirmalas or Udasis. And now because they would not reject themselves as being Hindu, they were purged out of the faith. So this is what they have done. So now if you point this out, again, this is such a confused generation. If this Khalistani, they say Khalsa Raj, Maharaja Ranjit Singh. But if you point them out, they have no answer. Maharaja Ranjit Singh's, everything what he did. So for example, the only punishment that brought like capital punishment was not if you tried to kill the Maharaja. Somebody tried and he was not killed. The only crime that brought capital punishment was cow slaughter in Maharaja Ranjit Singh's empire. So, when he died, a Gita was kept on his body. And, everything from marriage to his children to how he fought to, like what he built, you just see like he, completely in like a Hindu fold. And idea was, yes, we are a part of Sanatana Dharma. And so now they say, no, Maharaja Ranjit Singh was, corrupted. He became Brahminical. Again, this is so much nonsense. Okay, what is Sikhs? We didn't really have a kingdom, but if you leave Maharaja Ranjit Singh's time, Guru Gobind Singh Ji had two darbars in Paonta Sahib and, like Anandpur Sahib. And what you have is basically, so for example, he's very famous. He had like 54 poets in his assembly. And, 52 sometimes, it's a number. It could be, maybe it's 50, it's 48 or something, but it's like, a mythological number. So it's, they say 52. But if you look at what these people are writing, these people are writing different versions of Mahabharata. Why are they writing if they have nothing to do with Sanatana? They are translating, for example, what are the classical texts of warfare of our past. They are translating it into local language. So why were they doing it? And like, for example, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, he makes this army. So he writes Ugradanti. It's a very, very powerful, and even if you read today, like you're blown away, and Nihang Singh. So it's just called, sometimes it's called Chakechan. It means it's only Chechan. It's only 6 verses. So if you read what it is, again, it's like classic. It's not just like what do you say, worship of Devi, of Durga. And this part was actually part of his Granth that came before Shastranam Mala. Before you go to weapons, you worship the Durga, which gives the weapons, right? And again, it's version of it. It's basically like classic Hindu version. So for example, how you do is, first you say Ahvan. Then you basically say Ahvan is invocation. Then you say, what do you say? Ustati, like you sing praises of it. Then you say Benti. Benti is after doing it, you request, okay, give me this strength and, I'm going to do it. And then is Falshruti. Like, so you do it in a congregation and everybody who has listened to it would be blessed. So, this Ugradanti follows exactly this pattern. But what this Khalistanis do it again, this started by this British. They will pick up one line and they will do it. So for example, there is one line, he says, I want to start a Tisar Pranth. I want to start a third way. So this they have said, we are not Hindus, we are not Muslim, we are a third way. Again, like they're so stupid. So it's only, as I said, it's Chechand or, 6, what do you say, paragraphs or, it's not that big. You can read it. So this is line 119, where he says Tisar Panth. So what is like, if you go 2 lines before, it is line 117. What does that line say? That line says, like, give me the power. So I basically remove the curse of cow slaughter from the world. You go two lines after of Teaser Plan, which is line 121. What does it say? It says, give me the strength. So, I make Vedas and Saraswati sing in the everywhere. So, they remove entire context and they put one sentence. And, from SGPC from the top, like Pakistan have, national narrative from the top. They just spout nonsense, which has basically nothing. So, yeah, and again, it's very interesting. Now they say, if you are not Singh, you are not a Sikh. Very interesting. There is a book by Ganda Singh, and Ganda Singh is a very interesting character in himself. But he is the best of the worst. He's also a Singh Sabha apologist. So, but he is the best of the worst, and he wrote a book where he basically translates Guru's letters, right? So, if you see those letters, you find very interesting. So let's look at his father, right? Guru Tegh Bahadur, who was martyred. Most of them are going, to east of India. They are going to Assam, they are going to Bengal, they are going to Prayag. So this idea of like locating Sikhi to a geographical location or a language is completely stupid. Why is he sending these letters over there? He was basically charging in the east. Now, if you look at his son, after he has made the Khalsa, you see his letter. So when this letter was sent, they were usually sent to like an important person. And then, important people, like 4 or 5 people. So, and then you will say, okay, like this is this congregation and it is addressed to 4 or 5 people of that congregation. No, you just do an analysis. There are Sikhs and then they're, without Singh. So they were equally part and they were respected members. That's why he's sending these letters. And, these are some letters by Ganda Singh. To give you an example of how honorable Ganda Singh is, he found a letter which was addressed to, which was in what do you say, preserved in Haryana by this, people who preserve these genealogies or something like that. So in that you have like letters, and it's very authentic by Guru Tegh Bahadur also, and Guru Gobind Singh also. And, he says, okay, I come here and, like these people have come. And, so Guru says, I am the son of Guru Tegh Bahadur, and, our goddess, our personal goddess is Naina Devi, and our personal priest is this person. I forgot the name, but so Ganda Singh, because he didn't want to say, okay, this is Singh Sabha, he should not say whether Guru has said this or not, or whether this is authentic or not. But because it didn't fit with his narrative, he threw this letter in the dustbin. After that, some Madanjit Kaur, she did this research and she said, okay, this letter is completely authentic. But it doesn't fit. They throw like the history or Gurbani into the dustbin. This is what this Singh Sabha and the SGPC has done. There was, to give you another example. So when Guru was doing war, it's a very powerful, it is essential part of Sikh liturgy. I'm telling you something you will not believe. It's called Benti Chupai. So, and it is, nobody knows the entire Granth, but this is what people sing. So, for example, when Manmohan Singh became the Prime Minister, some journalist went to his wife and, how you feel? And she's like, oh, I feel very nice. And I always recite this hymn, Benti Chupai. So it's from Guru Gobind Singh Ji's time. And it is essential part of the liturgy that, it's part of the 5 essential prayers that you have to recite. Now, what Guru had written, he had written 29 verses. But what SGPC forces everybody to sing is 25 verses. Why? Because at 26 verses, he says, Kirpa kari hum pe Jagmata. Like Jagmata, like, please bless me. So they're like, we can't accept this, because their narrative has become like this Christian evangelical, what they have said. They purged. So if you go to Gurdwaras, there are people who are baptized Sikhs. They grow up, they live with faith, they recite this, believing this is Guru's entire poem for 70 years, and they die, and they never knew these people have done this kind of fraud. So this is what they do. They have chopped Guru's words themselves. And again, like this, whether the Sikhs are Hindus or not. So, like how do you define it? So, like assume, so, there are people who want to kill you, right? So they're the Mughals who killed. Now you can read what Mughals wrote. They killed thinking you were Hindus. Let's assume you were Sikhs. But what is a fact is the Mughals killed you thinking you were not some separate religion, but you were Hindus. Now the Rajputs, now if you look at the Rajputs, always protected the Guru. So, for example, Guru Tegh Bahadur is executed in 1675. Now nobody knows it. In 1665, Aurangzeb had issued a fatwa again, that Guru should be killed. And in 1665, this House of Jaipur gives a personal guarantee that, you please leave him. And, we take personal responsibility that he will do nothing, and, we will take with him, and, he'll be. Now, this is actually very interesting, because, this is not a small risk, because once Shivaji Maharaj had left, the Aurangzeb basically bankrupted his entire empire trying to subdue Shivaji, like the biggest, or Maratha empire. So the biggest monument he created, and, that was the biggest monument in the entire Muslim world for over 2 centuries, was this Badshai Masjid in Lahore. Aurangzeb created when he thought he had subdued Shivaji Maharaj. So, and again, Shivaji Maharaj escaped, and, so he was like, okay, he should have thought, there is this guy, Guru Tegh Bahadur. He is respected by all Hindus, and, he's traveling, he's also armed, and, he has a spiritual power. And, what if he becomes another Shivaji Maharaj? And you see, when the House of Jaipur releases him, he has been married for 30 years. He doesn't have a son. After he's released on the personal guarantee of Jaipur Rajputs, in 10 or I think 11 and a half months, Guru Gobind Singh Ji is born. Now, nobody has looked at it from this perspective. So, if Jaipur House would not have, released Guru Tegh Bahadur, Guru Gobind Singh Ji would not have, maybe this great civilization would have produced Guru Gobind Singh Ji, but it would not have been from the womb of Mata Gujri, because for 30 years they didn't have a kid. And Guru Gobind Singh Ji has also said, like when my father was released, he went to Prayag, and and he did all this tirath, so I could be born, and I've been born to, fight for Dharma. So again, this is what they're doing, and, it can just become, what do you say, like a very, but I recommend a great book by Harjot Oberoi, and he wrote this book almost 30 years ago, 1994, and it's unchallenged. It's one of the greatest book of Sikh scholarship. It's called Construction of Religious Boundaries, in Sikhism. And it's an excellent book. And he basically goes in this 80s, 90s, how this Abrahamization of Sikhism comes, and, there is a contesting between traditional Sikhs and this neo-Sikhs that have been created by the British. So it's an excellent book. But what I've been trying today is this is in the middle Abrahamization. There is something ahead of this, what happens, and there is something behind it. So we go ahead, which is de-Hinduization and the Sikh communal politics, which is exactly like Muslim League. I've already gone in the beginning of this thing. So for example, the biggest problem was this, when they wanted to create a separate Sikh identity, was this, not only they were intermarrying, their marriage rituals, their birth ceremonies, their death ceremonies, they were all the same. So they created this new thing that, they have to be separate. So the birth separate. Now this, for example, the Sikhs, before that they were marrying by Vedic rites. You can read the British system, or you can read the British travelers, or the British government, or the people anybody who has written. So they created this Anand Marriage Act in 1909. And you look at what is fascinating is this Anand Marriage Act. It is not passed in India. The Indians here, the traditional scholars, everybody is opposed to it. So what British take is, they take this Anand Marriage Act to the Imperial Legislative Council. What is Imperial Legislative Council? It's in Britain, where only princelings can come. So they get this guy from Naba to basically support it. So they get it in England, and they forced it on us. So again, the separate identity. For example, now the other thing is, they created this core. Now again, this has been thought of, everybody thinks this is Guru's order. Every Sikh woman is a core. This is also a 100-year-old creation. Bhai, Kaur is a Rajput title from cover, and some women did have it. But if you look at, for example, Guru's wife, she's called the mother of Khalsa. Again, it's from Ganda Sikh's book. You read, I don't know, maybe there are 8 or 10 letters by her. You read in every letter, bar none, she has signed herself as Sahib Devi. She never called herself Sahib Kaur. But if you go, if you Google, or you go SGPC history, or you go Wikipedia, you will find her Sahib Kaur. So, this is what they have done. And what is so fascinating again, uh, they said, they went a step ahead. For example, this Indian idea, for example, there is nothing like Hinduism, there is nothing like Sikhism, because we are not a confessional idea. We are not confession based system. We are a knowledge based system. So the system is all about gyan. And we say, wherever you come from gyan, you bow your head. That's why wherever we see a temple, wherever we see a saint, we bow down. That was our entire idea. And that's why everybody was coming also to it. But you look at it, even the confessional faiths, they were like, you have to believe that Muhammad is the prophet of God, or you have to believe Jesus is the son of God. They also ask for positive affirmation. But if you look at what the SGBC created, because they wanted to de-Hinduize it, they said to be a Sikh, it's not just you believe in gurus and you believe in the Granth, because all the Punjabi Hindus believed in it. They're like, you have to be not a Sikh. No, you just imagine, what they have done. They have just bypassed even the Abrahamics by a long stretch. This is the communal politics. How can you say how can, for example, I can say I'm a Hindu only if I believe in Arya Samaj and I don't believe in Shak. You can say, okay, so what kind of nonsense is this? So, this definition again, what is to be a Sikh? Nobody was concerned. They were living by Guru's teachings or something. This idea of what is to be a Sikh, it has to be a negative definition, that you are not a Hindu. That again comes from the British time. And, that isn't. So, and, again, this is just nonsense. So, what, this is a completely manufactured narrative is also seen from another point of view. You look at this, where SGPC is this, where they, spread the poison that has been fed by the British. The Sikhs outside of Punjab, like I'm from Delhi, this Tajinder Bagga is from Delhi, this Jatinder Shante is from Delhi, all these people who speak for Mother India and against Khalistan. And what do you say, killings, pogrom of Sikhs happened in Delhi. So if you see, if there was some discrimination against Sikhs, or there was Sikh separatism or something like that on the ground, then it should have come from Delhi, where we are 2%. It should not be made where Sikhs are a majority in Punjab. But there is nothing. Pogrom happened. We are a minuscule minority. But, we have no confusion who we are. We are part of this civilization. And, gurus are, not prophets, but great saints with, examples to teach. And we have to do it. And again, this is when they did it. When they try to do, for example, the Christians would say, you don't have a prophet. They made Guru a prophet. Then you're like, you don't have a book. Then you're like, okay, Granth. No, Granth is what? Guru Granth Sahib. Again, Guru Granth Sahib is an anthology. And then Dasham Granth is an omnibus. Omnibus is like multiple books in one. They are on a different subject. And anthology is like different saints and singing, and you are synthesizing it. Now, if you look at the British, this idea that there is a single Granth also didn't exist. So they were like, okay, these are revered creations for gurus. So they were really respected, like anything. But this is also done by, under the British thing. And again, there is a fine paper by Arvind Pal Singh Mandher. He says, they just distorted everything. So, for example, one of the main guys who started all this nonsense was Veer Singh. And if you do Wikipedia, you will be like, oh, Veer Singh is like a great scholar or something, he won a Sahitya Academy Award. There is in Delhi, there is a Bhai Veer Singh Sadan, like a big library. And on Wikipedia, they say he's like the founder of, Punjabi novel or something like fiction or something like. So this guy, Veer Singh, his novels, again, literally, his novels are like Naseem-e-Jazi in Pakistan. So in his novels, the Muslim is always like tyrant, the Hindu is always coward, and the Sikh is always brave. And when the Hindu becomes Sikh, he immediately becomes brave. So this is the kind of his level of his intellect. If you read like a fine fiction novel like Dostoevsky, he actually makes the bad guy the most attractive as much as possible. So, that is something you engage with the grey with the world. But this was Veer Singh. No, what Veer Singh has done, just to give you two examples. He, for example, like this guy, when Jallianwala Bagh happened in 1919, now you see this Rabindranath Tagore, he was sitting 1,000 miles away in Calcutta. He gave up his knighthood. Then there was Churchill, and Churchill didn't have a good opinion of India or Hindus. He called us beastly people with beastly religion. This was John. But even Churchill, when he saw Jallianwala Bagh has happened, he called it monstrosity and like the biggest disgrace on the English crown. But this Veer Singh, who was sitting 1 kilometer from Jallianwala Bagh in his entire life, so he lived for 4 decades after, and he wrote pages and pages and pages and pages. He never said one word against Jallianwala Bagh or anything about Jallianwala Bagh. So these people used to polish the boots of the British with their tongue. And this so they said, what is this Granth? It's just like some poetry and some like devotion. What it doesn't have, like, for example, the like the Bible, like there is a movement, there is a structure. So he started doing it. So for example, he says this Ekomkar, it doesn't have to do with Omkar of the Rigved, because it has Ek in front of it. No, he wrote pages and pages and pages just to do this nonsense. Like Ekomkar has nothing to do with Omkar, but he would not write anything against Jallianwala. So anyways, and now you see what level of fraud he did. Was one of the most important books of Sikh history is called Prachin Panth Prakash by Ratan Singh Bhangu. No, why is this book important is because at that time printing press came in Punjab in 1880s, right? After that, before that, writing a book was a very difficult thing. Like you have to get somebody to write it, somebody who doesn't make mistakes, you have to bind it. It was a very expensive thing. Now, this guy, Ratan Singh Bhangu, he comes from very illustrious families. So one side of his family is coming from Maharaja Ranjit Singh, and other side of his family is coming from, like a great Sikh warrior, right? And in his book, why is it interesting is, in his book, he makes references to other books. So not only he is in a very privileged position, he's also a well-read person that he can make references to other books. Now, what Veer Singh did was, because Bhangu always thought of Sikhs, and this is Maharaja Ranjit Singh's time, as Hindus. So he wrote everywhere Hindu Dharma, Hindu Dharma, Hindu Dharma. What Veer Singh did was, he removed Hindu and put Sikh everywhere. This is the level of fraud they have committed. Now, he purged everything about Devi Devtas. And like when you go in a war, that's why Guru Gobind Singh Ji wrote about Chandi. When you fight for Dharma, it's always with Durga. That's why, like Aurangzeb destroyed the Pandharpur temple. But Shivaji Maharaj also said Jai Bhavani. So when you fight for Dharma, it is always with Durga. So, and he wrote, he purged everything. He put things from himself. But, he didn't know this will happen. The thing was, Panth Prakash, because it was so important, people found older manuscripts of it. And these older manuscripts, they match with each other, but they don't match with what Veer Singh has done. So he committed entire fraud. And believe you me, if you are, if you want to be a pracharak or a preacher of Sikhism, you have to read book of Veer Singh. All the books that you have to read, and you have to read by Veer Singh, who is the fraudster of the biggest order. And even where he writes, he says, okay, don't say this, say it like this. So there is no concept of intellectual integrity. But again, this sellouts of British, like for example, this Veer Singh, his father, there was one guy, Macaulay, who wrote the history of Sikhs. And because he wrote it in English, that became like the authoritative version. And he had this like two minions, like Khan Singh Nabha and Veer Singh. So if you read what history of gurus he has written by Macaulay, and that is the authoritative history. He says Guru Gobind Singh Ji said, how he said, nobody knows. But this is the authoritative history, like history of the Sikhs in 5 or 6 volumes that was written by Macaulay. He said, Guru Gobind Singh Ji said, when the British would come, oh, you Khalsa, you join forces with them. I'm paraphrasing, we have also posted on Seva Handle, anybody can read it, but I'm just paraphrasing. Like the British would be great, and they will have like a lot of name. You join forces, their kingdom will go north, south, east, west. You also go with them. And if you be loyal to them, the God is going to give you like riches, a lot of name, a lot of fame, a lot of health, and a lot of winning. So that's it. Like he wrote the history that basically, we have to be toadies of the British. And this Veer Singh and Khan Singh Nabha, and we have nothing to do with Hinduism, so divide them, that they don't first join fight. And this is what they have done. And what do you say? Again, So another interesting point is, for example, Sikh name. Now, for example, you see like Preet, Gore, and there is nothing. They're all good names and something like that. There is nothing like. But if you read like the older names from Sikh history, there isn't. I don't know any now Harjinder or Gurpreet or like this kind of Sikhs name. Again, this came in like 100 years ago. To separate. Our name should not be same. Our marriages should not be same. What you do, and what do you say? And yeah, and what is very interesting is, who defines a Sikh? Now, okay, this is the Singh Sabha version. Now, when the British were saying, like Sikhs are Hindus different, and this guy Macauliffe, you can have his secret CID reporting. He say, I've removed them from this curse of pantheism and I've made them a separate nation. So when they say kom, they should be very clear that they have been made a nation, or this idiocracy of nation, not by the gurus, but by Macauliffe. And you look at when the British was forcing all this Anand Marriage Act and everything, who can define? They are the Sikh scholars who went to this gurdwaras and they said we were Hindus. Now, who were the bloodline of the gurus? No, nobody has actually studied that. So, so the Guru Nanak, the first guru, his bloodline is the Bedis. And, we had this, and, they had the huge stature because they were the direct bloodline. And, they were supposed to be like possessed with spiritual power. Thousands of people will congregate. And, when they will go to Gurdwara, they will be given a gadeya, so they would sit on a bit higher position than the others. And when this Singh Sabha started to make noise, they were kicked out. So they had a huge reverence that you can't imagine. It's like, for example, this Bhosle of Shivaji Maharaj multiplied by 1,000,000. That kind of reverence they held in Punjab. And so that was, then the third guru were Bhallas. They were always like the biggest scholars. So the guy who was the amanuensis of Guru Granth Sahib, he was also a Bhalla. And the Sodhis from 4 to 10 gurus, they had political power. If you had to go to Malwa, you had to take their permission. They had a lot of, all these people who were the guru's bloodline, they said we were Hindus. Now, what do you say? After them, what is the authority? Is the princely state. So when this started, Muslim League is making Pakistan, some idea was we make also Khalistan. And they were like, the biggest princely state was Patiala. So they were like, we'll make Patiala, the king of Patiala, the head of Khalistan. This was also like one of this Akali discussion. Now, if you look, the Patiala, he basically said, like we are Hindus. This is again 100 years ago. This was not even, a shocking thing. It was the most natural thing, like that we are Hindus. And, there is a great book. And again, you have to, it's called Sikh Separatism or Politics of Faith by Rajiv Kapoor. And that was written by, he was doing his PhD thesis in 1980s. And when I was going through India Today archives, I just read a review by Tavleen Singh. And then I made sure I found the book. And now I've always also put the PDF online so you can get it. It's one of the most important books that anybody should read who is interested in it. So, this discussions happen in Punjab Assembly. And the Hindus of Punjab, they say, we have been revering, they come from our caste, we intermarry, we revere, we always keep Granth Sahib in our home. Like, how can you say we are not Sikh? We have always been Sikh. You see the lectures, our ancestors were Sikh, the gurus had like close relationships with them. And how can you say it? And, they would send these discussions to the central government, central British government. And the central British government say like what they are saying is completely logical. But the Punjab government, the Punjab British government would say, you are giving a lawyerly argument. These people are doing direct action on the street. So they basically gave into this Akali demand, create this separate Hindu Sikh identity, and only somebody who says who is not a Hindu, only he can be a Sikh. That nonsense started from there. So this is again a British thing. And even if you read like the British papers, they agreed this doesn't have basis in honesty or in truth or in logic or what do you say in fact, but it is something they had to concede because of street muscle of these Akalis. And if you look at like Punjabi Hindus, they keep getting abuses because they have become like just like Pakistanis. They never abuse any of the Sikh gurus because even today, they intermarry. I am married into a separate panth. We have no separation. We just respect each other. We are part of this greater civilization. And, so now, like, for example, like now we move, this was like, for example, de-Hinduization. Now you go to the first point, colonization. So you see colonization when this happens. So Punjab is basically two parts, largely divided by Satluj. One is Eastern Punjab that Punjab we have in India, right? And that was ruled by British or the princely states. And one is the above Satluj Punjab, that is in uh, Punjab in Pakistan, and that was ruled by Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Now, if you look at this, like the British come here, but they don't enter. They don't enter for a decade till Maharaja Ranjit Singh has died. Like the what do you say, or 7 years till Maharaja Ranjit Singh has died. When British come, they create churches everywhere in Kapurthala and everywhere, but there is no church in the Pakistani Punjab or the main Punjab or Maharaja Ranjit Singh Khalsa Empire. When the British come, immediately the very same year they create a church in Punjab. And what does that church do? Like people will go and this called mass conversion. It was not a small thing. They converted, what do you say, the scion of Kapurthala. So Kapurthala was the second biggest, princely state. So imagine it, I don't know, not Pune, but maybe they created the Raja of, Gaikwad of Baroda into Christian. No, it was like a big threat. They converted the son of Maharaja Ranjit Singh into a Christian. Now imagine if Sambhaji Maharaj had converted into into Muslim, what kind of, how would they have felt? So, these people who had defeated their empire, they were converting, the son of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. They went to Golden Temple and they created like a seminary outside Golden Temple. They created even a bunga inside. And what they did was in the Sikh missionary college, where people were being tried to be Sikh missionaries, they converted Sikh missionaries into Christian missionaries. And, then it became like a crazy. So the British idea was, like convert these people. But they were doing this. And at that time, if you look, the population of, the Sikhs in the British army is actually very less. But when this 1857 happened, and if you look at the British, they didn't know whether the Sikhs or the Punjab is going to join this national struggle or not. And they were really afraid. But when Punjab doesn't join this mutiny of 1857, then they basically saying, okay, these people, we have to have like some people, to control these same Indians, because they were a very small minority here. Then they create this idea of, like Sikh separatism and something like. Now, for example, there is, I can't go into the details, but there is my talk in Hindi with Sanjay Dixit ji is called Evolution of Macaulay Sikhs. It's in Hindi. I've given complete evidence. This 5Ks that we assume is like fundamental to Sikh faith, that has also been created by the British. It has no basis. Now, what do you say? I've also given a talk to Kushal Mehra and in English, where also will present evidence from journal papers and something. So you see this British create 5Ks and they say, okay, this is your identity. And what the British were saying, you have to join the army. Sikhs are great. If you want to join the Sikh regiment, you get benefits. If you don't have 5Ks, you must wear the 5Ks. If you remove the 5Ks in the army, you will throw from the army. No, this is such a stupid thing to do. No, imagine, you don't want to believe me or not, but let's say when you train somebody to be a soldier, no, that is very irresponsible job and it costs a lot of money to the government, right? It is like training a doctor. Now I'm saying you're wearing a green shirt. I'm saying, okay, if you wear a pink shirt, I'm going to cancel your license. What is my interest in you wearing a green shirt? So what is the British interest that there should be Sikhs and they should have like separate identity? No, everybody should have, because this was the official British policy that the Sikhs should be separate. And when I said about the Singh Sabha movement, the biggest support came from this people they had recruited in the army. And to give you an example, how they used as cannon fodder. Now they are, in UK they are trying to get benefits because this West feels like guilt. Oh, the Sikhs fight for the British army and stuff like that and something. Oh, wahi. And they fought for freedom. What kind of nonsense you are saying? Okay, let's assume they fought for freedom. They took like the Sikh people everywhere and made them policemen. In China, in Burma, in Hong Kong, it's policemen also fighting for freedom. And they were basically like, they were a colonial power. So again, they make any kind of history to feel better about themselves. So, so they made, like 5Ks. And this 5K was used, okay, if you don't have a 5K, you don't be a Sikh. For 175 years after Guru made the Khalsa, in no Hukamnama, in no history that is written, there is mention of 5K. But they made no Rahitnama. They have made 5Ks. And there is a cost to create these people, what do you say, like Pakistanis. And we will go into it. But anyway, so first was conversion, that was co-option in the army. And the third is actually, some things you also do by from a good intention, but they actually go wrong. So you must have heard this place in Pakistan, Layalpur, right? So that comes from a Layal. He was like a very important officer in the British Punjab, and he basically was very also important in converting desert light into canal colonies. So when the Hindus and the what do you say, Sikhs, they were really overrepresented in Punjab. Like it was almost 50-50, 50% Muslim, 50% non-Muslim. But the Sikhs, especially the Khatris and the Orods, they got all the jobs, right? And they were every. So this Muslim League would always come and make the representation to the British government that we are 50%, we are not getting the jobs, but they are getting the jobs. You should make quotas and stuff like that. And the British argument was always like, we have an open market system. You accept British education, you go to their school, you compete, everything is merit based. You get the jobs, nobody's starting you. So they would go again and again, and this would happen. But what Layal thought, no, there is some resentment. There is some resentment. So what I should do is maybe appease them and make some quotas. And these first quotas were actually not made public. But once he made these quotas, these people who got this quota jobs, their commitment became not to their citizen, but to their community who made the quotas. Then these authorities, they were getting the quotas. They formed their own bureaucracy. They became super powerful. So actually this Muslim communalism, and this is great research by N. Gerard Barrier. He doesn't really have a book. You have to read research papers. So that is even before that. He basically finds out, this quota system, like really starts communalizing and dividing things. First, there was some emphasis, that, merit-based system, an engineer is an engineer for everyone. So, there is a common nationhood. But once you started the quota is like a Muslim engineer or a Sikh engineer. So communal politics actually started in 1817, in 1880s because of the decision by Layal. And if you look at even Ambedkar, and what he says is, the argument is you should get affirmative action because generation past have been oppressed. No, the thing is, what kind of logic is this? Like if generation past have been oppressed, you oppress the current generations. So if you look at the argument, that made some sense in the beginning. When quotas were given, they were supposed to be given for only 10 years. 10 years was like, okay, this generation suffered, this generation will get some benefit. So half a generation is, when 10 years is basically half a generation. So this generation suffered, this generation gets a benefit. But once you created the system, now it is in perpetuity. Forget about removing after 10 years. It has expanded and expanded and expanded and expanded. So, once you develop a bureaucracy, it's very hard to do it. And there's a great book by Thomas Sowell, Affirmative Action Along the World. And he has given me, you can't question that with data and evidence. Wherever it has been tried, it has actually sowed division and separation. It hasn't really helped people who was it supposed to help as well. It has built resentment against, like the other thing which have been like built as a process. So that was like the three parts. And, now we'll basically conclude. So now this have created again, they're like, whether you're Hindu, it doesn't matter what you're Hindus or not. But, you should understand what is written, right? So let's say if you go, prayer is Ardas, right? Now there are different sects. So the first paragraph is basically by Guru Gobind Singh. After that is basically SGPC and Singh Sabha, and they have put, and different sects put their own thing. But what is the common? It's basically, you remember the first 9 gurus. So the 9th guru is father of Guru Gobind Singh. And Guru Gobind Singh said, Teg Bahadur Simriye Karno ne diya thai. Now, basically, once you have detached people from the Puranic path, nobody knows. You meet a normal Sikh, who has basically gone Gurdwara and he is saying this prayer for entire life. He doesn't know the meaning of the first paragraph. And this is not some Sanskrit or Hebrew. This is Braj Bhasha. This is anybody can understand. So, Teg Bahadur Simriye means, Simran means meditate or remember Guru Teg Bahadur Simriye, Ghar no nidhi aved hai. So, ghar mein no nidhi aayenge. Or 9 treasures will come to your home. So why there are 9 treasures? Why there are not 6 treasures? Why there are not 12 treasures? Why there are not 13 treasures? This is the Puranic idea that there are 8 siddhis, 8 special powers, and no nidhi. What do you say? 9 treasures. So if you have read Hanuman Chalisa, it says, Ash siddhi navnidhi ke data aswardin Janki Mata. Anybody from UP Bihar can understand what it means. But what this modern neo-Sikhs that they have created, they have no sense what they are saying. Now, again, this is the first paragraph. Now, if you take the Guru Granth Sahib, and after that we'll conclude. You look at that, let's say the penultimate page, like the last page has the Ragmala, but that is 1430. If you go to 1429, there is a beautiful shabad by Guru Tegh Bahadur. And he says, when this operation of Aurangzeb is happening, at that time he sings, Bal chutyo, bandhan pade, kachuna ho tapaye. Let me see. Oh, Keh Nanak, ab ho tariki, gajju ho tapaye. So now again, what does this mean? If you read Guru Granth Sahib, he says, the translation is, I have lost my power. I've been restrained. I cannot do anything. Only Lord can help, like he helped an elephant. Now you say, does it have any sense? No, this is actually coming from Gajendra Moksha, from Bhagavad Puran, where this Gajendra, he's from Trikuta or something from some there. And, like an alligator holds his feet and he tries to break free, but he doesn't. And, he tries it. And in the end, he sings a cry to Vishnu. And that beautiful cry basically becomes the invocation of Vishnu Sahasranam. So he's saying like Gaj is Gajaraj, but so he's making reference to that. But you said, we don't have anything to do with Bhagavad Puran, do it. Then you basically sing, Lord will help me like he helped an elephant. Does it make any sense? So this is what they have created. They're just like rote learning. They have, from the start to the end, they cannot make any sense of what is written unless you go into like the metaphorical and the mythological meanings, and you will not understand any depth. That's why there is like this mass conversion. And there is a cost to pay. So for example, anybody has to believe anything if they want to believe. Now, to give you an example, and with this we will really conclude, I think, we went really over limit. Look at this, for example, look at Pakistanis and Sikhs, for example, right? They went to Britain around the same time. They lived in same neighborhoods. They went to the same schools. They got same education. They came from same background. Their parents did the same kind of blue collar jobs, like cleaning toilets, working in the airport in the 60s, 70s. No, after that, what you see is like Pakistanis are at the bottom and the Sikhs are at the top. They're even above Hindus, right? I think they are the second most Jews. So, they have like 3 or 4 times the income of the Pakistanis. They are very low in crime. Pakistan are very high in crime compared to the average white. So, with the crime, everything. So why are Sikhs more successful and the Pakistanis are, they have the same language. They have the same culture. I talk, there's no, but, people are the same. But what your values you put, that makes a world of a difference. So this Pakistani culture and our culture is different. Maybe it was not different at some point in time, in 60s and 70s, not. But when this Islamism came, and now you see a world of a difference. So, Britain is one of the few places that collects data on the basis of religion. And it is called NEP, like National Equity Program or something like that. You put NEP and Britain and Sikh and Muslim. So Muslims are mainly from Pakistan when they got in early 2000, and Sikhs are, of course, from Punjab. So they're all Punjabis. They're comparing. And, just this religion difference can be. Now what they have created, this Khalistanis, they have created a version of Pakistanis. So I'm giving you an example. When the British came, and, like Indians were always professionals, they take Indians all over the world. So for 200 years, we have a good data of Indians everywhere in the world, not just in Europe or in Pacific. They have only been for 100 years. But, like in Africa, they went everywhere, in Caribbean and something. They always have a few things in common. Very low in diverse, very high in education, very high in economics, very low in crime. And again, these are the things that make it successful. Now, what these Khalibanis, they're not Khalistanis, they're Talibanis. They have the same things, chop hands. They have chopped hand outside a Gurdwara in Australia, not just here outside Delhi. You do Brisbane Gurdwara, you will find they have chopped a hand on last September. They kill people. They're like blasphemy concept. Like, again, this is a Talibani concept. You look at that, you do just put gang bust Canada, drug bust Canada, and you see all sing. We have no history of this. But because they have been created and they have accepted Pakistani culture, they have not just become a threat to us, they have become a disgrace to us. Because I'm challenging anybody who wants to do it, and we can talk about any country, any continent. Indians were always the most desirable immigrants for these 4 things: lowest in crime, lowest in divorce, highest in education, highest economic attainment. What they have done, it's so shameful. If you go to Vancouver, there's like East Side, you Google, you'll find people with turban begging and drug addicts. They you do like grooming gangs. They were doing business of what do you say, underage girls. This is what they are doing in Canada. So again, because they have accepted this culture, and it is our failure that we have not done, is because freedom is not something, as Thomas Jefferson said, you do in one. Every generation has to fight, and we didn't fight. And they have this dysfunctional people that are living in Canada. They are bringing a complete. They are as much threat to us as Pakistanis, and their outcome, their behavior, their manners, their way of being is just like jihadi. And there are very good people in Pakistan as well. I don't want to rubbish it, but they do have like this problem of putting everything in religion and a very intolerant interpretation of it. And Pakistanis will also concede that this is what they are doing. So now what I've said, like this three phases, what happens is colonization, then Abrahamization, then de-Hinduization. It's not just this happened. And I think I've made a strong case, but there has been a cost to pay for this. The cost is like, industry is dead in Punjab. They are going like donkeys there, and they're indulging in all kind of things that have no association with Indian immigrants. What these Khalistanis are doing in Canada. And it's a very dangerous thing. And, again, they have destroyed our Guru gifted reputation. And if I think this is a very painful, and if we don't rise, it's not about whether Hindus or Sikhs or not, it's about values, whether we have values of dissent or not, whether we have space for questioning or not. And that is about being Sanatan, whether we have the values of let knowledge come from all directions, whether we focus on the common humanity of all, whether we can integrate everybody in our, understanding of things. That is Sanatan. It's not, again, take from one belief system to another. So what we are fighting is an evil jihadi cult. And the primary responsible for this is, of course, like the British who set in motion. And SGPC, if you look at their behavior, this is basically Pakistan inside India. And this is my current research, and I hope to write a book on this within this year. And with that, I conclude. Thank you so much for your time.
Sir, MS has asked views on Sanjeev Nair's spread on esamskriti.com. Do you have any view on this?
No, Sanjeev, he is actually very, we follow each other on Twitter, but I respect him, and he is also the greatest scholar of modern Sikhism. His name was W.H. MacLeod. He was from New Zealand. And that we have a thing like Sikhism in graduate studies in the West is because of this one great man, W.H. MacLeod. And you cannot imagine how this guy was harassed by this SGPC and this Khalistani lunatics. Like, if I wish bad on somebody, there is like a guy in California, his name is Jasbir Singh Man. And every great scholar that has come, he has basically destroyed their lives and done everything. You can't even imagine like how vindictive, how malevolent and venal these people are. Anyways, so, he has read MacLeod books. So, of course, it just shows. So he writes better than anything that you read, anything. But again, some things also, like, for example, 5Ks. So, Sanjeev ji sent me a message. Like, look at this. And then I said, Sanjeev ji, this is actually not true. There is no basis for 5K. And after that, they were saying we will carry Kirpan to the aeroplane or something like that. Then I came out and released this. There are a lot of things that I have not released because I don't want to gratuitously hurt people. People also have to be ready to digest the truth. But again, this I have already said, so I'm telling you, there is no basis for 5Ks, they have made foundational to faith, and not just made foundational to faith. They are disbarring people from the faith or being part of the faith. Like, you can't vote in SGPC election if you don't have. So this has become the definition of Sikh, which is completely a British invention.
Subhajyoti Mitra ji has said, how AAP can be a threat to Punjab, AAP?
No, this is again, politics. Politics is again, my subject is history, right? And history also of this Khalistani terrorism. This politics, you can get pretty much anybody and they will have comment and everybody has an opinion. So I do it. But, again, I just looking at it very objectively. I think AAP is like a very opportunistic party and they are not serious, like what kind of statements they were making. But at the same time, if I want to see like the positive sides, you look at not just like the Sikhs, but the Hindus, which should be most concerned about the security, right? Because they, that's another topic in itself, what Hindus suffered in Punjab. And I've also given a talk on it. Somebody can Google Hindus in Punjab in 1980s. But Hindus have also voted in the same manner for AAP. And AAP can be opportunistic, cynical, but they are not stupid. So they should worry about Punjab, A, because their vote is not just Sikh, but also Hindus. So they have to protect them. B, if they make a mess of Punjab, then they should forget India. And it's very easy to make a mess of Punjab. So I think they would try their best to actually run it well. Because if they make up, then they have no argument. In Delhi, they just say Modi doesn't let us work. But if they make a mess of Punjab, what case they can make in Himachal or Gujarat or anywhere in the world, anywhere in the India. So they have incentive to run it well. Whether they have the competence or the sagacity to do it, it's an open question. I don't want to go into it.
Sir, I have a question that are there any instances of any Rajput converting to Sikh from a person, a Rajput and Sikh at the same time?
Yeah, so many. Like, what do you say? Like, okay, he was like a monster. This guy who basically like bombed this Air India. His name is Talvinder Singh Parmar. Parmar are Rajputs.
Okay.
So Sikh, basically, if you look at this, Sikh, being a Sikh was like, they had this pan idea thing. Like I said, the letters are going everywhere. They are translating classical text into Braj Bhasha. They were not translating in Punjabi because Braj Bhasha was understood by the most number of Indians at that time. So when the Gurus translate, or in Maharaja Ranjit Singh's time, the books that are written, they are written in Gurmukhi script, but they are not written in Punjabi. They are written in Braj. So maximum number of people can understand. And as I said, it was not printing press, so you can take a book and buy it. These were mainly to be sung. So they sung in a language that anybody understands. Now, again, I talked about Ratan Singh Bhangu. Like he says, when the Guru says, okay, now we have a Khalsa, whether you want to go to like east or the west, like entire India is open. And they're like, no, we are in Maja. We want to focus here. So this idea, also when Guru writes a letter, when he says Punjab, this Punjab comes from basically he writes Madhya Pradesh. Like, for example, if you have listened to Mahabharat, so Nakul and Sadev, they are the children of Madri. So Madhya Pradesh is Punjab. So when Guru writes letter, he doesn't write Punjab. He's again and again putting himself in the larger mythological context. So he says we are Suryavanshi, like we are from the sun lineage. The Gurus were from the dynasty of Ram. We are the children of Love and Kush. We are from Madhya Pradesh. So there is no conception, about language or locating this thing to a geography. It was like the confidence the entire country is ours. It is restricting, to say, for example, Vishnu's is usually 9 or 10 avatars, if you include Buddha. What Guru says is 24 avatar. And what he's trying to do is trying to synthesize everyone. So, for example, he puts Buddha as the avatar after Krishna, right? He puts Buddha. But now what to do with the Jainas? Because the thing is, Mahavir and Buddha come at the same time. So the two avatars cannot exist at the same time. So he puts Parshvanath, the one who came before Mahavir, as also an avatar of the Vishnu. This nobody has done. But what Guru was trying to do was try to synthesize all these things, because that's why India was losing. One was technology, what do you say? We didn't have war horses. So war horses came from Central Asia. That's why if you look at Gurus, there is a lot of focus on the horse. Then when he saw the artillery is coming, and artillery is becoming, what do you say, like more powerful. So in Shastrana Mala, he says, Askirpan Khando Khadak Tupak Tapak Tir, right? But if you look at this, and these are the weapons that come, and they're traditional weapons. But he focused on artillery the most, because he could see this would be the future. So now when I talked about Ugradanti Bani, this section. So again, he says, when he's talking about Durga, he talks about Durga's weapon. But he also says Durga Top Chalanti. He tried to make even the cannon as the weapon of Durga, because it's a modern time. So he was a modernist, and he was trying to incorporate. There is a Shak tradition, there is a Vaishnav tradition, there is a Buddha tradition, there is a Jain tradition. He was trying to synthesize everything. And this is the effort of the Gurus, and we have to take it forward. It's not like, okay, there is a perfect being and we can't question, and we just become, there is when Islam died this intellectual death in 1000 AD, the idea came Taqleed. Taqleed means, okay, this is the truth, this is what has been written, you can't question, you can't use your brain. And this is what they have done. All this is Taqleed. Whereas if you are a living thing, you have to look to the future. If you're inspired by, what do you say, Shivaji Maharaj, it was Shivaji Maharaj. Okay, like, he died in 1680. Then his son Shambhaji, he fought so bravely for much longer, and what do you say, he died the most painful death. But it was Baji Rao. He spread the Maratha Empire everywhere. So if you're a great person, like, we don't say like Guru Gobind Singh Ji is one of the greatest of this Mahabharati, but you have to take his work forward. We don't have to say, okay, this is the prophet and close the book, and we just every day just do a kavali or something. So his work was strengthening India, resurgence of Indian civilization, synthesizing our divisions. So there is diversity, but there is also synthesis. And we are doing that work. And this is the responsibility of all of us who are inspired by Guru Gobind Singh.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sir, when we say Afghan Sikh, so are these people indigenous to Afghanistan, or the one who were converted to Sikhism from Punjab and later migrated to Afghanistan? I mean to say, are there examples of Sikhism in Afghanistan where indigenous
right
was converted?
Right. So this Afghan Sikhs, they also go like to Maharaja Ranjit Singh's time, and also like these Khatris. No, they are Pathans. They are ethnic Pashtuns. They are not Punjabis.
Mm-hmm.
They are ethnic. So the thing is, now basically they face from Taliban, because Taliban say, oh, you are cowards, you converted our religion or something. So they basically hide and they say they are Punjabis, but they are of the Pashtun stock. And I want to also tell you how this another evidence how this Hindu-Sikh division is created by SGPC. So SGPC was in Punjab, where they were creating all this nonsense. You have to do it. But if you go to where outside Punjab, but which is right next to Punjab, so for example, Sindh and Afghanistan or Afghana area, Peshawar is also beyond the Indus. Indus is the boundary of Punjab, our India, right? In Afghanistan and in Sindh, like which is beyond the Indus, the distinction between Hindu and Sikh doesn't exist. They call themselves Nanakpanthi. Mm-hmm. They don't call their temples as Gurdwara. They still call their temples as Dharamshala. So again, this is a 100-year-old, 100-year creation. Like, what is a Gurdwara? Before, this was run by the saints and monks and Udasis. It was called a Dharamsala. And they were all the scholars. These Nirmalas and these Akalis, they have no scholarship, and they use Taqlid, and they can never produce a scholar. So this is the thing. So again, but they were not affected. If you listen to what Afghans saying, maybe they are saying in Pashto or something. But hear very carefully. They say their temple as Dharamshala even today. So that shows you that all this division has been created by the SGPs, artificially created from the top.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Poonam ji has asked, what is the way out for the continued Christian conversion going on in Punjab?
Now, Poonam ji, again, I've answered this many times. I disagree. But why do you focus on what they are doing? This is not what our gurus have said. The locus of responsibilities lies on you. You take responsibility. What's in your country? Why you focus on what they like? The thing is, they are converting because they have created this cult where there is no space. So everybody is escaping. Somebody can escape to Canada. Somebody can escape to drugs. Somebody can escape to missionaries. That because what they are saying doesn't make any sense. Because it has no, mercy. You see how they lynched a person. What they are saying, what I tell, because they don't want. They never tell what is the meaning of Tegh Bahadur Samriya Karna. You don't know the meaning of the Ardas. You don't know what is written in Granth Sahib. So how can, if you have any brain, how can you just read in something and not understand? So it is a spiritual crisis in Punjab. That's why people are escaping in all this direction. And if we have to fix this, we have to work for spiritual resurgence. And it can start by simply speaking the truth. Like you will have to pay a lot of cost for it. If you are in India, then I don't, you have to be more careful than me. Even I have to suffer so much living in where free speech is supposedly the best protected on East Coast of America. But, we have to take the courage of speaking the truth. And then there will be a resurgence. And, there is this line by Dushant Kumar, मेरे सीने में ना सही, तेरे सीने में सही, वो कहीं भी आग लेकिन आग जलनी चाहिए. And as long as this fire is burning, between us, I think we can realize Guru's dream, and we can, if people will follow our Guru's vision and want to be part of this Sanatan Sanskriti. We don't have to be defensive. We don't have to be like SGPC or Pakistan. We can have a proactive mission for us.
Okay. Aditi has asked, so was the Akali Dal created by the British, and what made them just blindly follow Islamist ways, like referring to Sikh Dharma as Qaum, Bedawi, etc.?
No, the British incentivized. So if you maybe join later, I said they incentivized such behavior. So whatever you put, you put cost and incentives, right? So for example, you put caste politics in India. So whoever did it, now there is incentive to playing the caste. That's why Lalu Yadav will caste, and the state gets destroyed. Modi is like the biggest achievement. I have like disagreements with him, but like caste has kind of gone to the back burner because again we have to focus on the common humanity. So as I said, you put the same incentive, same constraints in a system, you get the same outcome. So they incentivized, like you say separate because they wanted to divide what you say the freedom movement because it's happening at the same time. This Muslim League is coming, Bengal is partitioning, and this is happening in Punjab at the same time. And if you look at it, like a larger British states, they always did this. So, like the British colonized so much of Africa, they will always take like a minority and, like make it privilege. And I don't say like, okay, like maybe they took the opportunity by merit, but the British would always do, okay, like these people are small, we can get their loyalty and, like they will not try to control it because, they have been, there is a majority who will like steal from them. So they played this divide and rule policy. And the thing is, in India, we all already have our biases. That's why I think there is a book by Conquest and Culture by Thomas Sowell. He basically goes into like the colonization of Africa by the British. So you just read what they were doing in other countries, you will understand what they were doing in India.
MS has asked, are there any visuals of desecration done to Golden Temple by Khalistanis? They only talk about the government did and keep showing tanks and such. Any stats? I think any statistics on girls being kidnapped and raped in the Golden Temple?
Yes. I think Shekhar Gupta has done a story on Baljeet Kaur. Like this woman was raped and I can't even say, but just put Shekhar Gupta, Baljeet Kaur, and this was just a few months before Blue Star. So you will find it. And if you look at when you talk about desecration, so this happened in 84. The mistake of the government was there was no media. So when they did in 88 by KPS Gill, he got the media of the world put together because he was like, these people would always put the blame so the world can see what they are doing. So when, he got this, they were like these people in the Golden Temple. It was in the news, like it's not just news. Newspapers of the world, Swedish, American, everybody, because everybody was there. They said they had defecated inside the sanctum sanctorum. Inside the sanctum. And then the guy was like Malkiyat Singh Ajnala. He's like this. He pointed, nobody knew. He pointed towards Akal Takht. And then Human Rights Watch, because Human Rights Watch, everybody was there. The government had no idea. Then they basically dug the Akal Takht. And 46 dead bodies were found from under the Akal Takht. So this is like the spiritual desecration. But I'll say something else. There is another guy. His name is Amardeep Singh. And don't listen to him on history. But what he has done is done fascinating ethnographic research. So what he has done is on Pakistan Gurdwaras. And there is documentaries and there are also his book. So, this Pakistani Gurdwaras were left untouched by SGPC. So if you see in Pakistani Gurdwaras, there are frescoes of Ramayana, of Mahabharata everywhere. So this is how our Gurdwaras used to be. Now they have whitewashed everything. Like Indian Gurdwara, like now this ISI has gone and painted this Mahabharata and Ramayana inside our Gurdwaras. This is how we used to be. So one is like falsifying of history, that is done. And the other is desecration, like urinating, defecating. And what they have defecated? This ball where you serve the prasad to people. And that they had defecated. And this guy who had defecated, one of the biggest guys, his name was Kara Singh Thande. If you Google him, you will find on the 1984 terrorist abuse site, like this great warrior. This great warrior had defecated inside the sanctum sanctorum of Golden Temple. And just go to India Today archives, and you will find everything.
Proud Bharatiya has asked Puneet, how to deal with jihadi mindset people.
Such bull. Speak the truth and pay the cost for it and find meaning in it. That's it.
Shweta ji has said, जब ये गए विप्रण की रीत मैं ना करूँ फिर इनकी प्रतीत दसम ग्रंथ रिहानी रहे सोए सिख मेरा ओ साहिब मैं उसका चेहरा. These are written by Guru Gobind Singh Sahib. Does it direct to carry Panch Kakkar here?
The thing is, again, hey, okay, maybe I go on a tangent. But like, for example, what you understand is what I said is Dasham Granth is an omnibus, right? Omnibus is like a different books together. Now, what you want to do is explain things, right? So explain things. There are many ways to explain things. For example, I talked to Raja Abhishek. You should not steal. It's a command, like the Jewish command, thou shalt not steal, right? Now, there is another way to say, why should you not steal? Then, there is, for example, Prophet Muhammad. He would explain in different, like, why it is bad. So, for example, he would say, like, if you take interest on money, for example, there are 70 parts to this sin. And the smallest sin is like having sex with your mother. Or he will say, for example, why backbiting is bad. He's like, backbiting is eating like the dead meat of your brother. So it's trying to explain. Another way to explain is writing a narrative, like you write a novel, right? And you say, okay, this is this character, and this is this character. And this character, he basically he steals, and this is what he has to suffer. So as a human being, you understand that much better, what is done. So what Guru Gobind Singh Ji has written, a lot of it is narrative. And they just, like pull it out and say, to give you an example, there is a line, he says, Kshatriya ka putu Baman ko na. So again, this anti-Brahmanism that they have started, this was picked up by Bhindranwala, and he would repeat it everywhere. He's such an idiot. No, Maharaja Ranjit Singh would give the biggest grant to the Brahmins. I'm not talking about other Brahmins, just the Kashmiri Brahmins. They are 11 out of 36, or almost 1/3 of the people who have contributed to Guru Granth Sahib are Kashmiri Brahmins. So he says, Kshatriya ko putu Baman ko na. Now, where is this coming from is basically 24 Avatar, like I said. So when Krishna Avatar finishes and Nar Avatar starts, like Arjun, so he makes Arjun also Avatar because he was creating Kshatriyas to fight. And of course, we know from the Gita as well, this is Kshatriya, this is the Dharma. In that context, he has said. But, he's telling a story and he writes there. If you just read a couple of lines before, okay, like this is Bhagavad Katha, and, I don't want to create any other dharma or something. I'm just putting in Lok Bhasha. So he's telling a story. Now you find a lot of stories, like about women, or, like this thing, and, somebody cheats on his husband and, like, so that means women should go out and cheat on your husband. But again, they don't know any context. And they just start speaking this nonsense. Like I told you about, like they're limited things that they say. Like, for example, Tisar Panth. No, again, for example, when Mahabharata ends, I forgot it is Shanti Parv or Anushasan Parv, right? So Vishnu Sahasranam or Shiv Sahasranam both come from this in the same chapter. And when you are doing like Vishnu is the greatest. In the same chapter, you say Shiv is the greatest. So our understanding, again, you are using a monotheistic lens. Who is higher? This is higher. Whose father bigger? It is not. It's in a certain context. In that context, Vishnu is the greatest and he has all that attributes. And the same thing is this. So it's henotheism. But again, like you have to have a certain level of acculturation, certain intelligence, certain manners to even engage with these people. They have nothing. They're just like, these Pakistanis, these Khalistanis are like this. You watch my words. They have done everything like, you in UK, like, they did gang bust. You put Canada gang bust, all Jatsik, drug bust, all Jatsik. And you watch 5 years, you will see like you had grooming gangs in UK, you will have the same in Canada. So, what kind of things, like, do you think you can have a civilized conversation with them? My job is just to inform people what they have done. And maybe, like the people in the middle, they decide for themselves, like what is to be done. And we should all work to speak the truth and to know where the poison is coming from.
Sir, I have a personal question. Do Sikh people also have gotras like us, like Hindus? And
of course. Like what I said about Guru, to give you an example, when Guru Gobind Singh Ji, just in the talk, I talked about, he goes to Haryana. And that is still preserved. Surprisingly, I found even a video of it. This family has preserved for hundreds of years. Maharaja Ranjit Singh's ancestors came and, they sign it and you can read it. And so wherever they go, they like, for example, when Guru Tegh Bahadur goes, he say, I'm Sodi Khatri from Kashyap Growth. When Guru Gobind Singh says, he says, I'm Sodi Khatri from Kashyap Growth. Our deity is Naina Devi. And this is everywhere.
Okay. Sir, SC has asked, today Akal Takhat Jathedar gave a call Sikhs to obtain licensed weapons because impending time is tough. How do you see this statement, or is this also curated by Bhai Veer Singh?
I am just saying, bhai, this is like SGPC, like you have set in motion. Like it's Pakistan. Their entire thing is separate nationhood, create this conflict. So their thing, like Pakistan is also this. You think, hypothetically, never I mean it, but do you think if you give to Kashmir, all of Kashmir to Pakistan, it will sit quiet? Pakistan is not a state, it's a mindset. And mindset is separate nation and conflicting nations and like this. So SGPC is like this. So what my case is, nobody has understood because, everybody has memory of Aurangzeb and everybody thinks, oh, Sikh gurus were great and everybody reverse them and, we marry. And especially the Sikhs, they say outside Punjab, were mainly Khatris. They're like, wow, what great neighbors do they make? They have no understanding that this SGPC is exactly like Pakistan inside India. And, for example, you must have seen this Kashmir files.
Yes.
No, whatever you saw in Kashmir files, you say anything, like, for example, putting posters, Hindus leave, otherwise we will not leave your women. Khalistanis did this, like get people, shot them, whoever will go there, we will burn them alive. Whatever you saw in Kashmir files, we have already put on Sikh Seva handle. And, if you search through that, you will find it. But you put me, if you want to challenge, you can put me anything that you thought that was shocking. And I show you like in 888, late 80s, early 90s, Khalistan did the same thing. They were also like, you can wear only this color. Like, they were saying they closed down the Hindi department in Punjab. They closed down. They were like saying to professors, like, you have to write their name in Gurmukhi script. So, for example, if you're signing a Raj Abhishek, they will kill you. They're like, if you go to this Dera, if you go to Maratha, Matas Jagrata, if you celebrate, Hindu festival, we are going to burn you alive. And they acted these things out. Like they acted this. It was not, to give you one example, when, so they would always capture people. One time they were like, release our people. Otherwise we'll kill KPS. When KPS Gill came to power, he said, we have to set a death rate and we are not going to appease. So it's like, we have to pay a cost, we will not do it. So he refused to release these people, Khalistanis. They killed 69 villagers of one place. So this is what these Khalistanis were doing, right? Everything what you see like in Kashmir files, Khalistani did exact same thing in Punjab. And if you actually look at data, we also put it, from very respected Institute of Sweden, when Kashmir basically burst in 89, 90, 91. You look at the numbers, there were more killings in Punjab than Kashmir. It's just like in 92, there's KPS Gill comes and he gets like a free hand, not just police can do anything, but free from political interference. And in 6 months, 8 months, he basically cleans up the entire problem. Otherwise, Punjab would have been exactly like Kashmir or worse. Because Punjab used to be worse than Kashmir. Everything what was happening in Kashmir was happening in Punjab and on a bigger scale.
Proud Bharatiya has asked, Puneet, I live in Punjab. I don't know why here is so much anti-nationalism.
No, it's just like, I give you an example. So there is I forgot the name. His name is he's a great guy. I don't know. His name is Man Quest for Meaning. There is a great book, Viktor Frankl, right? And he is maybe one of the greatest people from the 20th century, right? But he was picked up by the Nazis, right? And that guy, he was in Nazi prison, and everywhere was like Heil Hitler, Heil. No, he's a Jew. No, he's suffering. His family has been killed, and he's like the smartest guy. Maybe he has like 160, 180 IQ. I don't know, but one of the smartest guys and one of the most spiritually strong guys. He writes in that book, when everybody was saying Heil Hitler, I had to use my entire force not to raise my hand and say Heil Hitler. So, we are social animals. It's not, you think we are rational people, we get data and we're not like this. So what the crowd is doing around us, that shapes us in a long way. So this crowd, especially in SGPC, it is completely unchallenged. We are the first people to challenging them. And thankfully, nobody has released this for 100 years. Nobody checked or who checked. They didn't have the courage to speak in openly that 5 cases of fraud. So we are doing it, and it's, of course, thankfully, because there is internet, they can't get my neck. I'm living in America. I'm not in India. Otherwise, I wouldn't have said so. We have a lot of privileges. I'm not like, rubbishing the contributions of others. But this narrative has actually never been challenged. The Sikh Seva is the first one to basically, openly challenge and bring out the crimes of SGPC and Khalistan.
Well, Swetaji has just put Sri Aurobindo's quotation on Sikhism, but we don't have that much time. I'll just read out the first line. The Sikh Khalsa was an astonishingly original and novel creation, and its face was turned not to the past but to the future. Okay, thank you, ma'am. DS has asked, do you believe that the Punjabi Hindu exodus murders that occurred in the 1980s could occur again with the rise of Khalistan?
No, there are two things. Now, again, there's Punjabi Hindus. Raja was saying nobody talks about it. Like we are stupid people because, like history, we don't study like what leads to what. And we have the same thing again and again. We don't study like Pakistan, this same separate nationhood and nonsense lead to like genocide. And they wanted to do the same in Punjab. Now, Hindu exodus, like nobody, we found, like, again, our team did it. Again, more Kashmiri, we can't really compare because, they almost entirely left, more than 90% left. And Punjabi Hindus were like a much larger portion of Punjabi population. But more, in absolute numbers, more Hindus had to flee Punjab than Kashmiri Pandits from Kashmir. So if you look from 1981 to 1991 census, 2.5% population of Hindus has fallen. Now, if you look at the population of Punjab was around that time about 20 million. That means 5 lakh Hindus. That means 500,000. But there is also another side to it. So when the terrorism is finished in 1993, so if you go to the next census in 2001, that 2.5% comes up again, which shows like the Hindus at the ground, they were at peace. It was just like, there was no rule of law. SGPC had been unleashed and criminality, and they were doing it. It was not their neighbors who were oppressing them. Ordinary people on Punjab, they didn't really have that much conflict. It's the SGPC and then this criminal elements. You can lynch people and go to SGPC and do anything in the name of religion. That is basically, and what Gill came was like, these are criminals and I'm going to deal with them like criminals. And then everything was all right and most of them came back as well. So, yeah, so there are both sides. More Hindu left, but many a Hindu came back again as well. So the Hindus don't have problem with the Sikhs. But yes, this cancer, Pakistani cancer that we have in SGPC, it is always playing religious politics. And, in the name of religion, the government is also like a bit careful not to offend. And, they create this where there's law and order. Now anybody can go and shoot anybody.
Okay. Ranganath Shukla ji has asked how Bhinderwale became hero among Sikhs, though he created a solid ground for separatism.
No. So there are two things. If you listen to my talk and my research, this is basically the popular belief that, Bhindranwala came and Mrs. Gandhi miscalculated or something like that. What my researchers think, and of course, and I'm standing on the shoulders of giants like and Gerald Berrier and Harjot Oberoi and Rajiv Kapoor. My thesis is this came in like early 1900s from the Muslim League. They were mimicking the behavior, the tactics, the demands, everything of the Muslim League. So that is my thing. Now, what you say about Bhindanwale, there is a talk, Bhindanwale about me. Like if you Puneet Sahani Bhindanwale, there is a 1 hour talk. And, like in that, I break down, from he came in 78, and what he did in 78, what he did in 79, what he did in 80, like all these years, every year is like what he was doing. So, you can do that. I think that would help.
Shwetaji has said, are any true facts about Banda Singh Bahadur? He was a yogi and tantric before meeting Guru Gobind Singh Sahib. And sir, one thing I have also noticed, the martial arts part, the Sikh martial arts and the weapons were already present in the Hindu deities. We see that Shastar, what you say in Punjabi, and the martial arts also, the Sikh martial arts, that's also has similarities with our Hindu martial arts. And
so again, I'll answer you like again, so my idea is not to give you facts, but like bring something that excites you. So things you made like Banda Bahadur, weapons, so you see, like there was nothing of Panch Kakar. There was always of Panch Hatyar. And of course it makes sense, right? Like you have to fight, you have to be ready. So you need weapons. What are you going to do with the comb? Like this is nonsense. What are you going to do with the kada? So the thing is, Guru talk about 5 Hatyar. So I have his letter from 1702, where he says, come to me with 5 weapons. Then I have a letter from Banda Singh Bahadur in 1710. He says, come to me with 5 weapons. Then in 1810, there's a British colonel. His name was Malcolm. he comes to India and he gets this scholar also from Calcutta, and he writes a sketch of the books. It's very interesting. And he says again, Panch Hathiyar, 5 weapons. And when he writes 5 weapons, he makes a note and goes there. It's like these weapons and all this worship. This comes from Durga.
Yes,
So
sir.
this is a Shakt Parampara. And again, so I think I answered. So again, this entire history is fraud. I'm not saying, some undergraduate is just fraud. They're like, I don't know what to say. They're Shankaracharya of this modern psychology. It's Veer Singh. And what I've told you, like, I don't know, like, when I read this, I was like, man, can really a human being can be so depraved? Like, I couldn't believe it. Nobody knows it. But I'm saying with evidence, this is what Veer Singh has done. He has taken a very important historical document and raped it. He has, like, basically changed the words. He has removed portion he doesn't like, and he has put what he wants. And his books are basically taught to scholars to teach other people about Sikh history and religion. This is the level of depravity is what they have done to our scriptures.
NSS said, sir, a conclusion what I have understood is that there is no Sikh religion, there is either Hindu or Khalistani. Is it correct?
What do you mean by we are not a concept? Dharma is not mazhab. Like, our civilization is knowledge based. So wherever you get a knowledge from, you go. And there, of course, fundamental teachings. And, an example that you try to do it. So, for example, Gurbani, like, what is special about it? It is like Advaita knowledge, but it is composed in music. So, if you go to a Sikh temple, it's sung in ragas. Like, even if you don't, like, music does something on its own on you. So, you become more open to that. My understanding of Guru Nanak is, so for example, it's not Guru Nanak was some prophet, I have some knowledge and I'm going to go Heathen and convert. If you look at his travels, so what makes him special is, like, there are great saints. So, like, you don't find many travelers. Okay, you have one traveler, like, for example, Buddha. So he basically wanders just in Bihar. So Bihar is basically Buddha. He does we have Adi Shankaracharya. He's like one of the greatest, but he goes basically to India. What Guru Nanak does is he basically travels much of the world that was known at the time, right? And if you look at it, he's always going not just to Heathen or people where have no civilization. Like, he is not going to Brampton or Surrey where people have no knowledge and trying to give them civilize them. So what Guru Nanak is always doing, he's going to IITs and MITs. He's going to the most highest place of learning at that time and engaging. So he's a seeker himself. So he, for example, he says, Chhe gar, chhe gur, chhe updesh, gurgur eko rupane. So there are 6 schools of thought in Hindu thought. And he says there are 6 schools and, there are 6 gurus and all of them are right. They're just like different forms of it. So he is trying to explore. So what I have understood his life philosophy is, in your culture, something becomes outdated, leave it. In every culture, there is something to learn, accept it. So this is a timeless philosophy. There is no dogma in it. So that is the example and fundamental teachings that are timeless. This concept of mazhab with like blasphemy and dogma and this is created and now the time starts now. This is just like not just Abrahamic, the worst attribute of Abrahamic. Like, for example, the caste was the worst attribute of our civilization. So they've picked up the worst aspect of their civilization and made it fundamental to like our culture, which nothing can be worse than that.
Subhajyoti Mitra has asked, is there any organization that can challenge SGPC?
Well, right now we are the only one. Thankfully or regretfully, we are the only one. And, they've really like hit now I have nothing to lose. And I think, we will not stop because they're not going to let. So this is a fight to the end. And, whatever they have to do, they can do. But, with Guru's teachings and truth and logos by my side, this is going to be like fight to the end. Whatever they can do, they've tried everything. And you must have heard also, like now death threats are going into like even in articles or something like that, what they're doing. But now it's just like this, whatever it is. So we are there, and I'm sure, like people will come on itself and also like start speaking because, this to give you an example, like for example, this core thing, last thing, and maybe. So for example, this such an artificial creation. Like I said, Guru's wife is Devi. Now when Bhagat Singh, recently there was Bhagat Singh, we were celebrating him. No, look at Bhagat Singh. This case went to court, right? So Bhagat Singh's mother's name is there. Bhagat Singh's mother name is Vidyavati Devi. So he's a Jat Singh, he's a revolutionary. And again, Khalistani, if you go on Wikipedia, they're again making it Vidyavati core. They're again, like that's how they falsify history. Now, the person who testified, who gave testimony against him, his name was Ujjal Singh. Ujjal Singh was the chacha or the uncle of the celebrated author Khushwant Singh, right? So he gave their testimony in court. His mother's name is also there. She's also a Devi. So now we have two Sikhs, one from a farmer family, one from an industrial family. One is a loyalist, one is a revolutionary. Both are Devis. Now they say Guru has said to create core, which has nothing existed. And I ask any Punjabi, any Sikh, you do this example at home. You go to the oldest member alive in your family, right? And you ask that person who is the oldest female that he remembers, dead or alive. If that woman was born before 1915, her name would have Devi, not Kaur. So, that's how they created separate name, separate rituals, because nothing like this existed. And everybody believed in the teachings of this, like, again, even though it's in Pakistan, like Baba Bulle Shah. So, say, some people say all Sufis are like, Baba Bulle Shah was, he spoke for the Gurus against the Aurangzeb in that time. And living there, like Gurus left Baja and they came, to hills of Shivalik to fight. He was living in Punjab and Multan, where he said this. So he said Guru Tegh Bahadur as Ghazi, and he said Aurangzeb as tyrant. So if somebody says, oh, like Baba Bulle Shah, you are a Sikh, you can't read his poetry, you can't read his book, you can't have faith in him. What kind of nonsense is this? Like Baba Bulle Shah or Waris Shah, they're part of our Punjabi inheritance. But that's like, if you ask any Punjabi Hindu, the Gurus are the part of, their Punjabi inheritance. And that's why they can't let them go. And that's why it's an unequal fight. Because this Khalistanis and SGPC, they take no respite in insulting the Hindu gods and goddesses. But the Punjabi Hindus cannot turn back and insult the Sikh Gurus. Because for them, they are equally reverential. Again, like you read this book by Kapoor, like how Hindus really fought. They were getting nothing. But they were like, how can you take this from us that we are Sikhs? We are Sanatanis. But we have always revered them. We respect them. They are as much as ours, we in our home. How can you decide we are not? It's like a personal thing between God. Right? Even Islam says that. What they have created is like the worst version of Wahhabism. Because they also think your conversion is between like you and your God and something. They are saying, no, we are going to define. So this is basically takfir. Again, to tell people kafir and all this thing. This is what they've started. And this is what they've done, called kafir, kafir, kafir.
Okay, just one question has come. Khalistanis always mention one quote from Guru Nanak, Naham Musliman. Why would have Guru mentioned this?
It is not. He said, na koi Hindu, na koi Musliman. But right, I think Guru Arjan says is, I don't believe in this. And again, you go like 20 pages earlier, Bhagat Kabir had said the same thing. Bhai, you read it, na? It's in the same rag. Again, there is a, there is a talk by me on Jaipur dialogues. I think one of the first ones, and I gave, I took this statement and I just showed it's the same to same, maybe in a one or two word here and there, what Bhagat Kabir has said. And Bhagat Kabir has come centuries before Guru Nanak. So what do you say? Like Bhagat Kabir, people who believe in Bhagat Kabir, they are another religion. They have nothing to do with the civilization. What they are trying to do, or all Bhakti saints are trying to do, is go out of this organized religion and go for this inner spirituality. That is what all saints have. What is special about it, bhai? If you do like this, you will find this in Namdev Bani. You will find this in Jayadev Bani. You will find this in Meera. Like everybody has said this in some way or another. But what you are saying, Hindu Musliman, this is exactly what Kabirji has said.